probably don't work with like a solo practitioner who's like, I'm going to start a law firm today. Because you'd be like, well, all right, great. Do you have a book of business? Like, no, I do not. Do you have any money? I was like, I don't have money.
The comparison I use for solos who were candidly going to be very protective over the margin. They should be, right? They're just starting out. Yeah. They have to be.
You need to be.
I'm a bit like bringing a bazooka to a knife fight.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's entirely overkill. But if we need to start with some level of sophistication or maturity, right? And there's a book of business that's going to support that sophistication maturity, I become a no-brainer.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit. Hey, welcome to Above the Legal Limit. TJ Henry with Federate Legal. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Of course, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell me about Federate Legal.
So Federate, the short story is Federate is a...
Am I saying it weird? Are you... It's
so
not Federate. It's Federate.
I call it Federate, but it doesn't really matter.
All right, that's fine. It's your company.
Yeah, fair enough. So Federate is what I call a full stack back office MSO.
Okay.
And MSO stands for Managed Services Org, which is a much broader topic inside of law firms these days, given Arizona ABS structures and given a topic of alternative non-attorney lawyer or non-attorney investment into law firms. We don't run that kind of MSO, but we do run a full stack MSO. That typically means that I can run a firm's back office, call it 80 to 90% of a firm's back office, for a flat fee per attorney per month that is budgetable, scalable, provides cost certainty, and by the way, is 10 to 20% more cost effective than they can run on their own.
So who would I have to lay off here for that? Like
typically nobody. Typically I would hire those staff directly so you could keep all the people in place. I would just hire them at my back office, streamline that operation, and then make sure that you as the attorney or the managing partner focuses on the practice of law and client service delivery or gaining new clients, and you let all of the what I call administrivia roll off to a different entity.
Gotcha. So yes, I know all about that. I started the firm by myself. Yep. So I remember I hired my first paralegal ever. It would have been, I started the firm in 2015.
Yep. My
first staff member was late spring 2018. And it's a long time to go with zero support.
Time to go.
When I
Jack
started
of all trades when you're doing it for 3 years plus.
For sure, you know, and we were 3 lawyers by the time I hired her, and I remember sitting on my couch one night because I was always of the mind of like I still preach this to the lawyers here. I just did it in our Monday morning meeting. Yep. I was like, you cannot be incompetent, and I don't mean incompetent in the practice of law. I mean incompetent in the way you run your business, the business side of what we're doing. I was like, I never went, because I heard someone like, I don't know how to do it. Will you file this for me? And I just like blew a gasket because I was like, you cannot allow yourself to become obsolete through incompetence. You should know every single job here, backwards and forwards, because there will be a time, there will be a day when your paralegal's out sick, or it's after hours, or it's in the middle of a hurricane and no one's back yet. There's going to be a time, I promise you, or they all fucking walk out and quit, and you got nobody to help you but yourself. Yep. And the reason I know that is because there was a time and a place where it was me.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I don't know how to do this. So I'm super neurotic about that.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know, I was doing everything, and I had this mindset when I started the firm of like, you know, we don't need all this. Like I remember my dad was a lawyer. He had like 2 secretaries and a typist. I don't even understand how he did that. Like what, you know, but I was sitting on my couch and I was lamenting to my wife. I was like, I feel like I spend my entire day at the copier or the scanner, really. Yep. And she was like, well, I think you need to hire somebody. And I was like, I don't think I can afford it. And she said, I don't think you can afford not to. And it's like one of those, there's like those few pieces of advice you get throughout your career. You know, that was one of them. It was just like wow. I immediately, like I Facebook messaged my old paralegal and I'm like, what do what are you doing like right now? She was working here within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But as we've grown now we got 31 employees.
Yep.
Right. And so it's a challenge. Like I don't love doing the HR stuff.
Yeah.
I really don't like doing bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
I always say I'm 50-50 for hiring.
Yeah.
So for every 2 hires, like one of them is never going to work out. I don't know if that's kind of
par for the course. Actually.
So I was going to say, like, I don't know if that means I'm good at it or horrible at it, but I'm 50-50 either way.
Yeah.
It's a coin toss. We've hired 3 people this month already.
Okay.
And one hasn't started yet and one is no longer here. So,
okay.
So my statistic is holding very true.
How long, when the person you hired, how long were they here before they're no longer here?
72 hours.
Yeah.
72 hours. Very nice young man.
Yep.
Very nice young man. But I've gotten better at this, and I have a director
realizing
who's
it very quickly and just saying, you know what, this is not a good fit, right? Is the better option than letting it fester.
I agree, and I don't love doing that. I don't get
any
pleasure in tormenting people. But I am pretty good at spotting it very quickly and being like, Now I temper that with saying we've had other people through the years where we hired them for one thing, but now they're kind of doing this thing, and they're not really great at that. And everyone's like, oh, I don't really know about this person. I don't really know. And then we're talking about like, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to let this go? Are we going to, And then I had this moment. It's another moment where you go, well, hold on. That's not even what we hired this person for. Why don't we give them a chance to succeed at the job we actually hired them to do?
Yeah.
And this individual, many years later, is a very important person in this firm. Awesome. So you do have to allow yourself the opportunity to be wrong and reframe that conversation. But yeah, so backhouse ops is like, that's what I live in. Thank God I have a director because the HR stuff like drives me nuts.
It's a lot, and candidly, if you're doing it all yourself, which you have done before, and
I don't want to do it anymore.
It's constant, and the administrative pull that exists is ever present,
right? And
takes away all of the hours and time and focus and that should be on service delivery or growing the firm, right?
100%. So like you can't do it both. Like you effectively, you're either going to be a shitty lawyer or a shitty operations person. You're never going to be an awesome lawyer and an awesome operations person.
And if you think you are best suited doing both,
right?
You are doing neither appropriately.
That's correct. And so look, I don't have a docket of cases. Like that's not a secret. I'm sort of in and out of every single case.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't have my own docket of cases is because it wasn't fair to those clients. Those clients, I could see their folders just sort of like sit there on my desk.
Yeah.
While the lawyers were coming in my office all day long, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you want me to do here? What about this? What about this? So-and-so is like, I don't know, whatever. We think so-and-so's on drugs. I'm like, what? What? Are you sure? Why? What kind of drugs? I've never heard of that. What is that? Right. And so a long time ago, it's really when Adam, started in 2019 when my law partner's Adam, he came on. So I was like, all right, well, here, take my docket so that you have some cases to get going. And I never really replenished it. Everyone kind of is like, oh, like that's like a secret. Like I'm not supposed to say that. But the truth is, this allows me to come in at a more meaningful level with each lawyer here and be like, how's that case going? Where do you think you want to do with that? Why are you going to do that? And so we can have really in-depth discussions that I couldn't have had otherwise. And so, yeah, I agree. So if you're doing the front and the back, you need to take a look.
The interesting thing is it shouldn't be a dirty secret, right? I mean, as much as sometimes a client may not want to hear that if they're coming into your firm with your name on the door, it's kind of part of the process, particularly in what I've seen in most successful B2C firms, right? And we run a lot of B2B firms, we're in some B2C, but a lot of B2B. But on the B2C side, the most successful firms that I've seen have that set up.
Sure.
Right?
Or like we all know Morris Bart's not like out there like
Of
drafting Discovery, right?
Of course.
We know, like Chad Dudley's not doing it.
We were in Mississippi a couple months ago. Same idea, right? $30 million PI shop. The guy whose name is on the door is not exactly in every case.
Yeah.
Right? Not a secret.
But I do we do collaborate a lot, right? So every Monday we have an all attorneys meeting. Every Monday it's like, it's a rotating, you've got to, I don't want a presentation and all that shit. What I want you to do is I want you to ask me a question about one of your cases in front of everybody so that we can all weigh in and we can all have the benefit. Because what I also learned what was happening is like, one lawyer would come in and ask me this question, and then the next lawyer would come in and ask me a question. And that's fine. Like, that's my job. I was like, we'll talk about this all day long. But I was like, man, should we just go talk to him? And we just had this conversation. So now
if it's out in the open, I can break this into an hour and a half meeting or an hour meeting rather than start stops all day long.
All day long. And so we do it every Monday. And the last one was amazing. The lawyer asked me a question. I gave him sort of my answer. I had a lawyer disagree with me. I had a lawyer disagree with him. And then I had a lawyer agree. And we all got to talk about it. And then we all came up with a game plan. Yeah. And you know what? We got a great result for this client. Because
in a short amount of time.
In a very short amount of time, what we didn't know is we were going to immediately get a ruling that we all had to appear in court on a conference with this judge. And we didn't really know, like, are we in trouble? Are they in trouble?
Yeah.
They were in trouble, not us. And we won. And we positioned the case great. And that 30-minute conversation was probably a 5x value add on that client's case. And had it just been a one-off with me, I know generally what I would have said, but having that collaboration, this client's going to do great. And this lawyer's doing great work for that client. And so it's, being able to, so I'm a member of like a coaching, like business coaching and marketing group. And there's this thing that they made me do, right? And so it's like, what are you good at? And what do you like doing?
Yep.
And what of these things that you're good at and you're like doing that, like really nobody else can do it, right?
Yeah.
So like when we talk about that, like what am I good at? I don't really know, but what do I like doing? Well, I like doing the marketing, and I don't really think that anyone else should be doing that, And then they're like, okay, well, what are you good at that you really don't like doing? So, and then on those, should you or shouldn't you? Yeah. That's a gray area. Yeah. But then you go down to, but you could skip that for now, right? Because we're doing small little milestones here. What are you bad at? And you really don't like doing? And circle that because that's ridiculous. There's somebody out there who would love that job.
Yep.
And it's great advice. And so I'm doing this. At those days, I was doing the bookkeeping. And I was a horrible
Definitely
bookkeeper,
not something you should be doing.
Right? A horrible bookkeeper. My CPA all the time would be like, Justin, that's not how this works. I was like, well, I have a psychology / like philosophy degree and a law degree. I was like, I don't know the first thing about this. He was like, well, you keep it on the books. I was like, what books? What does that even mean? He's like, you went to law school. You're an idiot. I was like, no, I'm kidding. He didn't say that. But I mean, I was like, listen, I know tax law. I was like, that's not tax, So, so first thing we did, I realized, and then when you do this exercise, what you say is, okay, fine. How much time does this take? Because if it's like 30 minutes a day, you maybe just need to suck it up. I put it at about 35 hours a week. And one of my lawyers was like, Justin, you're the most overqualified, overpaid bookkeeper that there's ever been. And now we actually have like multiple bookkeepers, like an in-house and out fractional bookkeeper. But that exercise and a lot of this is what really goes back to what you do. I mean, I think there's a time in everyone's business owner's career, I should say, I guess, where you have to decide like where do you want to be in the business?
I think that's true.
Where are you most valuable? Am I most valuable like taking depositions? I don't think so. I think I'm most valuable having a 32,000 foot kind of overview of the firm and being able to tweak things as they go to help everybody rise up. And that's not for everyone.
Nope.
But I wouldn't be able to do that, so your operations essentially like you would do all this for me.
So when we started, my co-founder is a woman named Stacey Graff. She comes from big law. She's run other law firms before. We ran most recently one of the largest distributed firms in the country, a law firm called Ramon, which is about, we got there at about 145 attorneys In 21 months, we grew it to about 225 attorneys, got
wow.
about $100 million in top line, 45 states, 13 different countries.
That's a B2B firm.
That is a B2B firm, correct.
Yeah.
Full service B2B. But that was one of the first, call it early stage non-attorney investment vehicles. So in about 2021, they spun out their back office and sold it to a private equity firm out of California. And so we were brought in, I was brought in as, I call it acting managing partner, to really have a foot in each camp, law firm and the back office, and make sure we all rode in the same direction. And so I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in the MSO. And we had this idea that it was never really a thesis problem. It was an execution problem. And so we left to build Federate ultimately to deliver on that back office MSO really for the attorneys, not to suck a cash out, but to deliver on big law levels of tools, technology, process efficiency, push down market to small to mid-sized firms that can't access those tools or can't otherwise afford them. So we're talking finance, accounting, billing, we're talking IT, we build all the computers, we have all the relationships with vendors, Westlaw, Lexis, your practice management, your document management, all of that's umbrellaed on the side. HR, payroll,
I don't realize
benefits.
How much negotiating is involved in a lot of this stuff.
Wild.
I'll say something inflammatory. The software vendors are full of shit. And, the first price is not the real price. The second price is not the real price. The fourth price, you're getting closer. And everyone, and a lot of these guys, they sell you on a hope and a dream. What I liken it to is you look like you're like around my age. So I made this reference the other day and somebody just smiled and nodded like they had no idea what I was talking about. But it's like buying a kite out of the back of a Boy's Life magazine. Mm-hmm. And it would show up like a year and a half later and it would be like, sticks and ribbon.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck.
That's called Temu now.
Right. Temu. Yeah. I mean, right. So they sell you on a hope and a dream. It's all just sticks and ribbon. It's up to you to build it. It's an enormous administrative burden to build out those softwares.
It absolutely is. And negotiate all those. There's crazy. 50, 60 vendors. I mean, we're talking like the reduction of a P&L from 100 line items down to 20.
Yeah.
I'm just the largest vendor there, and I am a vendor, but I can't get pushed around by software vendors if I've got all of them and I've now done a hub and spoke model where all of them are under the same umbrella contract, right?
Right.
It becomes a little bit easier.
Even for a lawyer, I've signed some shitty contracts and not realized it, especially for a lawyer, because I'm just like, I'm a lawyer.
You have nothing to benchmark it to.
Right. And so like I had a crappy deal on our phones. I was so aggravated. I didn't even realize what I had done. They made it sound like, and I'm moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. Like I'm trying to do, and this is before I had a director. And so we were looking for a director. And so I was really all operations. Mm-hmm. And in those days, that meant I was bookkeeper too. And I have outsourced IT, but still everyone comes to me first and was like, my computer's right. And because I know every job backwards and forwards, I do.
You got really
fortunately, I do know the IT.
You got really good at troubleshooting up to a certain extent. Right.
8
times out of 10.
They made it sound like they were just going to throw in the phones.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And my first deal, they were like, don't worry about the phones. The phones, like, it's the service we want, and we'll throw you in the phones. So I was like, okay, fine. And what I didn't realize, because I wasn't really paying attention and I was just moving too fast, is what they were doing is they were essentially financing the phones for me. And that's a horrible deal. The phones aren't expensive. They're $200.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, so I'm still paying for these damn phones from 1,000,000 years ago that I would have paid, for $200. They're like, well, it's just $200 a month. That's like one phone. I was like, I would have paid for those phones in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so just a really raw deal from somebody who is busy and kind of burning at both ends. And I just needed the phones. I just needed new phones. My IT company's telling me, well, this is a much better vendor. I despise this vendor. Yeah. And would never, like, when the contract's out, I don't care if they're cheaper or better, or they'll never do business with them again. Because I was like, okay, fine. I don't want, just let me know what I owe you on the phones, because I don't want a bill every month for these phones. They're like, well, you have to buy out the entire contract because there's a contract of sale. It's $14,000. I was like, you want $14,000 for $2,000 worth of phones?
Yeah, that's insane.
So, this is not something as a lawyer.
No, it's not.
Operations are not what we know. Like, I know about the law. Most lawyers are like me. I'm the least unique
Most
lawyer
lawyers
out
didn't
there.
go to school to run a law firm. They went to school to be a lawyer.
Right. And if you look at like resumes, like we all have the same background, right? So either they were like poli-sci, like they're like constitutional nerds, or there was like humanities where they're just like, oh, I don't know what
I might be the
do.
unicorn there. I have a finance background and then a JD MBA, and I never wanted to work at a firm, which is because the world is hilariously ironic. I now find myself building firms, launching them for other people. I did not intend to do this.
And law schools, so if you have a JD, like law schools don't teach you anything about the business of law, because
not a single thing.
Honestly, if we're gonna be honest, I mean, it's very much looked down upon by a lot of defense firms and big law, even though big law is the biggest business out there, right?
Correct.
But the lawyers generally, and a lot of those firms are still like, well, I do my law, and then everything else is outsourced, and so I can just focus on this. We'll see in the next 10 years, 20 years what that looks like.
Totally. We're betting on the idea that it is, we're coming up to a place where it's going to be more ubiquitous, where attorneys don't have to do that. Candidly, one of our actual main bread and butter is not existing firms. It's groups of 5, 10, 15 attorneys starting their own firm. Yeah. Where we're law firm in a box. So all of the, you probably know this, and you probably countered it in 2015. There's basically 3 reasons people don't start firms. It's knowledge, what they don't know, or they are fearful of it. They don't have the time to focus on it, or they don't have the multiple 6 figures to actually build an engine to 100%. Run a thing in the first place.
100%.
Folks like us become law firm in a box. I can remove basically all 3 of those. So knowledge, easiest one to explain. We've built, run, operated other firms. The time aspect is the cool one. We spent a lot of time and money building what I call a golden instance of an engine, practice management document. All of it is integrated, all of it talks, all of it's under a single sign-on environment. But that means a group of attorneys can come to us, or someone like us, although there's not really one existing like us, and say, you know what, we're going to leave our firm in 2 months. What can you do? And the time aspect, I can purpose build the entire thing, soup to nuts, all the tech, all the integration, all the billing, finance, HR, payroll, practice admin, staffing in 60 days or less. Yeah. They get to walk in on day 61 and the thing just works. Focus on clients, bring the attorneys, just works out of the box.
I was having this conversation with a defense lawyer I know. And he is, like many defense lawyers, just approaching that burnout, right? Yeah. And the problem with, he's like, oh, well, the problem with where my firm is we're just not aligned, essentially. Sure. And he's like, I don't know, maybe I should go out on my own. And I was like, well, I mean, you are talking to the right person. Yeah. Goes, yeah, I know that's what you did, but I don't do that kind of work. And I said, I know, he's a commercial litigator. But I was like, well, one, I mean, I've done all this, so I was like, you need help,
Different practice area, but same.
Right. I was like, it's all the same. It doesn't really matter, right? I was like, I started out with, OneDrive. We moved over to NetDocs early on because I wanted to make sure that we had a system that was a little bit more scalable. Yep. We outgrew NetDocs. It wasn't good for bigger cases. It was too rigid for us. And all my lawyers lived in that, and my staff lived in Clio, and apparently they are like incapable of speaking to one another.
The integrations are frustrating sometimes, unless you've actually lived in all of those systems and understand what integrates with what.
Right, we're in FileVine, and I built that out in like. My staff makes fun of me. We built that out in like 90 days. Yeah, because I talked to somebody who was like, oh, we're a year into it, and I was like, fuck that. I'm not spending $2,500 or $2,000 a month to be building this out for a year and a half. No, it's pointless. We're going to go now. We're going to figure it out. And so we're still developing, our FileVine. But so I've been through all the stages, right? I've done it all. And, but I was like, it doesn't really matter. I was like, but I will tell you, they're like, he's like, I don't really want to do administration. And I was like, well, unfortunately, it really doesn't work that way.
You're either going to do it or you got to find somebody else to do it for you.
Right. I was like, like you can't be like, oh, I don't really want to be in the administration of law, but I want to have my own firm. I was like, well, that's to have your own firm is to say, I want to be in the administration of the firm. It's betting on yourself to say like, I think I can hire somebody better than I think I can have a better than 50-50 average. Yeah. So it's interesting. Well, hey, I'll give them your name because, you're right. I'm not familiar with any competitor of yours because I've never heard of a company that does that. And I think that's fascinating. So when I'm like pushed out of my own firm for, whatever, I'm going to call you up and be like, I'm in, come on. I'm kidding. I think that's really cool.
So I'll give you an example. We just launched a firm 4 weeks ago. Group of attorneys in Manhattan that were looking to start their own firm. It was the 2 co-heads of the litigation department at an AmLaw shop. they ended up saying, you know what, we're going to take a bunch of our attorneys and from a prior firm, some of their attorneys and a couple investigators and staff, go start our own firm. From the time they signed on the dotted line with us to the time they launched the firm, it literally was exactly 60 days. They showed up with 10 attorneys, 5 investigators and paralegals, and they had a really good book. It was about $30 million in top line, and just started running.
Yeah, just open up your laptop.
We were on site. We put boots on ground. We made sure that all of their computers worked, all of their screens and peripherals and everything else existed. We helped their lease. We now run all of their invoicing. We run all their billing. We run all their e-bill. Like, all of it exists. They got to show up and actually just take the cases with them. Right.
I assume you work with different vendors depending on the type of firm, right?
We absolutely do work with different vendors depending on the type of firm.
Right.
100%.
If you're right, like my wife's a lawyer, so like her needs, AmLaw, ERISA litigation is not my needs.
You're going to fit. So generally, it's going to fit into 2 buckets: your B2B firms and your B2C firms. Particularly if PI is its own animal, right? As you know. Your B2B firms are typically going to have 80 to 90% of one solution with another 10 to 20% slightly different software. Your B2C firms, same thing. But there's only about 50% crossover on the software. There is crossover, but you're going to live in different practice managements, for example, right?
For sure. Well, it's interesting. I'm curious to see where this is going to go, because I was talking to an AmLaw lawyer who was talking about moving from traditional defense systems into systems that were really built out for firms like mine. Built on Salesforce. I'm not going to name any names, but I was just like, well, that's interesting. I was like, that's not a software I would expect.
It's not a software I would expect to do either.
But maybe that is the future. Maybe we're just more innovative because we just have to be. And maybe
I do think that for B2B firms, there happens to be a very big hole in what I'll call mid-law, right? Where you've got like folks at the smaller end of the practice management system, Practice Panther, Clio, whatever the case may be, that work, and they work for small groups. And I know Clio's coming up with enterprise systems. It's a separate topic, right? But then you've got essentially 3 main players in AmLaw shops. You've got Adirant, which is our personal favorite. We have a large partnership with them. You've got Elite 3E, and then you've got Fulcrum GT, right? And Fulcrum is the largest of large. It's built off of SAP, but no 20, 30, 40 attorney firm is ever going there, typically, unless they're either going through us or they start out with 100 attorneys, right? So there's no real options in the middle. So I'm not surprised that some of them decide to go, you know what, we're going to go on to Filevine or something that is Salesforce backed, because those have tended to play up in revenue and attorney headcount in a way that the B2B market hasn't actually gone into.
They've never, I don't think that's where their head's been. It's like, well, I want to run a report on every lawyer here, and which they've been doing, but in a very antiquated way, in a very traditional way. Versus like in my firm, right? I want to report, so when we have cases, they get graded when they come in. And we have a grading scale, A, B, C, D. Figure if you're an F, like we really shouldn't be taking that case.
Probably.
So we decided to leave the F off. Like, if you've signed an F, like we got to, which has happened. Like recently, lawyers telling me he's like, I'm sorry, I just got excited. And he signed a case. This guy like fell asleep and hit a tree. And I was like, well, who are you gonna sue? And he was like,
there's nothing there.
I don't know. And I was like, okay, please call that gentleman back. And tell him that there's absolutely nothing we can do for him, or frankly anybody. Just educate him on the law. So he's not forced to call every person in town and get told no. But so I'll run all my A cases, right? A plus cases, or all of, I want to know exactly. So we'll do high value, low value, right? And so they got to enter it in. We're like, I think this is the range of the value of the case. And so, I can run a report, and then I could push it back into my marketing, right?
And so,
and then my marketing guy
can say, you should be doing that. Not even you should, because if you don't understand where the leads are coming from, and you don't understand how many of those leads you have signed, and in what bucket A, B, C, D, F they have come for, and in what type of injury they've come in the first place, and then what the outcome is, let alone the high and the low and the otherwise. Like, if you don't have those KPIs built out, it's really tough to know where you should go target.
Well, you're really blind. And then that's, so my guy will come to me and be like, Justin, I'm seeing, so this is how I value your docket. This is what I think it's worth based on your grading scale that you gave me. And I was like, well, hold on. I don't know that that's that accurate. And so I started doing my number crunching. I was like, oh shit. Well, he actually got this right. Weird. I mean, I think he's like pretty much spot on.
Yeah.
Or if we were like, hey, you're getting a lot of A cases from this campaign.
Yeah.
I think that, do you want to put more resources?
What is it about that campaign that's making it unique?
Right.
And how do we grow that bucket? Because I'm getting a lot of high dollar values on A cases. Like,
right. So, you're right. I mean, so this is all trial and error for me.
Of course.
Well, in all honesty, if it was just me starting out, it would have been a little. That's why you probably don't work with like a solo practitioner who's like, I'm going to start a law firm today. Because you're like, well, all right, great. Do you have a book of business? Like, no, I do not. Do you have any money? I don't have money.
the comparison I use for solos who were candidly going to be very protective over the margin. They should be, right? They're just starting out. Yeah. They have to be.
You need to be.
I'm a bit like bringing a bazooka to a knife fight.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's entirely overkill. But if we need to start with some level of sophistication or maturity, right? And there's a book of business that's going to support that sophistication maturity, I become a no-brainer.
So but you don't work necessarily. You're not in the private equity business. It's just that it's ancillary to what you're doing. It's an issue.
It's ancillary to what I'm doing. It's an issue. So we don't currently. We are not going in and purchasing law firms, right? Purchasing the back office of a law firm. We have been approached by a lot of private equity investors intrigued by the idea, particularly because we just ran a $100 million firm that was PE backed. And a lot of those investors want to, like medical or dental or accounting, get into law firms. The ethics rules, as you know, are state by state. There's only really Arizona with 1 or 2 sandboxes outside of it where it can work.
Did I just see California?
So 931 got signed, and so it's AB 931, and it just got watered down from the original 931 that was there. The original 931 essentially said that no case, no matter, we'll call it matter because it's on both sides of the house, could have fee sharing associated with if the fee sharing went to a law firm that was owned by a non-attorney.
It's a very strong approach.
Extremely
I was shocked
strong.
California was taking that
So
position.
It got watered down a bit, and it's now more on consumer funding. It's consumer funding focused. So the language is a little convoluted. I would suggest anybody to go read the language, and I'm going to come out with a podcast on that specific topic in about 3 weeks. But it was interesting when AB 931 got watered down. What was just as interesting is not necessarily just what the bill said, but what it didn't say and what got taken out and what was tacitly or silently approved by California. Is it on the books that you can own a law firm from a non-attorney perspective? No, California doesn't have that on the books. But there is a little bit now of a gray area in California. I don't think non-attorney ownership becomes ubiquitous unless California, Florida, New York, maybe Texas and Illinois fall. And unless they on the books approve it. Unless that happens, it's not ubiquitous. And so the only real way to do that, other than Arizona, is an MSO structure. So to your question, we've been approached by a number of other investors wanting to figure it out. But one of the approaches PE's traditionally done is buy first, figure it out later. They'll go try to do 4 or 5 transactions and then figure out how to roll all of these into a similar. It's risky, but it's also, they're not going to be able to do that for 18 months, right? At least from my perspective, they're not going to be able to do that for 18 months. And now 18 months later, after you've done a transaction, you're going to go back to managing partners and attorneys to say, actually, we're going to change all of your systems. We're going to change all of your people. We're going to attempt to make this more efficient. That's a wholly separate change management than trying to do it up front. So we've kind of been in this strange world where we've been approached almost as an MSO as a service to build out the MSO with products and services in the right structure so that those investment firms can do that from the start rather than buy and figure it out a year and a half from now. It's a weird time to be running an MSO like us that is probably the only pure vendor MSO in the US at the moment.
It's wild. So I was at a dinner with law firm owners, and I was talking to this law firm owner about his practice. And it was like the conversation just wasn't going the way I thought. I was like, there's something weird about this conversation. You ever like a conversation like, like what, my wife would have been there. She'd have been like, Justin, like I thought there was.
Can I borrow you for a second?
Yeah. She's like, right. There was like something weird about this conversation. It's just the answers weren't like the right answers. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, are you not a lawyer? And he goes, no. And I was like,
okay.
What what do you do? He was like, well, I was in sales and, insurance and stuff like that. And so, I didn't realize he was in Arizona. Very nice guy.
Yep.
And he basically bought a law firm. And he's not the lawyer. And I'm not oblivious to what's going on.
We won't name names. I might know him.
Yeah, but super cool guy.
Yeah.
But I was just like really kind of like it took me a second. I almost fell out of my chair. And I was like, because we read about him in Louisiana, like we're very different. Yeah. I have a strong feeling Louisiana will not allow private equity to come in. The way Louisiana views the practice of law.
There's a number of states like that.
I would be shocked if Louisiana would allow such a thing.
Yeah.
But the only way they'd prevent it would be with that bill like that from California, because what's to stop me from partnering with a lawyer or JD in Arizona?
Yeah.
Or hell, let's be real. You have a JD. All you need is you can just go get your DC license, if you're licensed or not, I don't know.
I am. I'm active. I'm still active in Louisiana.
Okay. Texas. So, but many people aren't, right? And nobody would fault you for going inactive or something like that, right? And so that's the same. The work. I mean, there's so many of us out there, and there's so many lawyers who hate being lawyers that, I mean, it's not that hard to just go find a JD and like, here, sit in this seat, And
I know a number of people that are approaching it that way right now too.
That would be the cleanest, easiest and less risk, less risky way, in my opinion, to be able to do it. But what do I know? Like, I'm not in business, right?
Yeah.
And so, but anyways, it was it was like one of those moments where I was like, man, I've read about you. I've read about that, and how weird. And he was telling me about their operations and then I was like floored, because when it came down to it, I was like, wait, you guys do domestic? And it was like a divorce firm. I was like, holy shit. Like, I've never even heard of a scaling domestic firm, because that's not, like family law is just not something that you typically view in a scalable fashion.
I can tell you that there are 2 different investment shops that have had calls with me that their thesis, the focus is family.
On family law. Wild. So the early days of my firm, we did a little family law. And the reason is because,
the early days of your law firm.
I was the early days of the law firm. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any cases. I had a few BP cases, and I had 2 solid premise liability cases that were surgical cases that were referred to me from a guy I'd met out of Texas. And he called me up right before I started the firm, and he's like, I got these 2 cases. Do you know a lawyer in Louisiana that I could send them to? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, well, where I'm at, they're never going to let me do it. I was like, I don't know. I called my wife. I'm like, it was like just like this gnawing at you, and it actually took me a while to get back to him, a couple of weeks. And I was finally, my wife was like, go for it. Because the deal was, I was like, look, you're pregnant.
Yeah.
If we wait any longer, you can forget it. It'll just never work. Yeah. And so I called him up and I said, actually, I do know a guy, and so, and there we go. That's history. But so in the early days, I'd pick up domestic cases because you're in your 30s and everybody in their 30s wants a divorce. You can pick them out of there. They're easy. They're quick. I personally hated it. I hated doing domestic. I don't mind the divorce stuff. Like, that's fine. Like, get you a quick and speedy divorce. It was dealing with the kids. And then once I had kids, I really hated it.
Yep.
And I mean, I remember it was late. Like, I was trying this case into, like, the courthouse is shut down. It is, it's like 8:00 at night.
Yep.
And I'm cross-examining an expert on a custody issue. And in my mind, so I can deal with money, but I was like, man, if I screw this up, like, this kid is just gonna have like the worst life. I can't screw this up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, this isn't for me. But to see that's like where they're head. I mean, you would assume they all want to do PI because the margin's so much higher.
A lot of it's there.
Right.
A lot of it's there. But I think a lot of, some of the folks that we've talked to, and again, I have to say it because like we are, we're a pure vendor play,
sure, right? It's not what you're doing.
No, we're a pure vendor play. I sometimes I have to repeat that and I know you know it, but sometimes I have to repeat that only because we often get lumped into that. Sure. And there are pros and cons to that structure. We leaned the other way. I didn't show up with a $50 million committed LP capital to go try to buy law firms, right? Like that's not where, and honestly, I think there's some misaligned incentives there for attorneys. So you have to be really careful that if you're going to do that structure, that who you're embedding yourself with is the right partner long term, right? But there are a couple that they're all trying to silo their thesis under one or two practice areas, right?
I suppose a domestic has it. You could structure it in a way to have a similar profit margin, like your net profit ratio is the same.
Yep.
Without the massive advertising budget.
So you're going to have some advertising and marketing in there, but it's not going to be nearly what it is like in PI.
Is like sick.
Less competitors for eyeballs and so your cost per much lower.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, I like what you do because, like I say, I don't think PE and Louisiana are going to mix very well, and we've already seen similar situations, right? And so I won't name names, but great guy. But, huge advertising law firm out in the Midwest comes in, opens up shop sort of behind the veil, with a local, but then they get sideways and it's just like this huge explosion in the market. And you're like, oh, wow.
There's a reason we did it from a vendor perspective, because from a vendor perspective, it's compliant in all 50 states. Like, there's nothing.
No, what you're doing is
all an MSO is a collection of MSPs, right? An MSP is a managed service provider. So when you outsource your HR, or your IT, or your finance and accounting, you have an outsourced bookkeeper, right?
Yeah.
You're essentially just collecting all of that and outsourcing it to one vendor. There is not a single state where that's not allowed.
No, actually, that's a great idea. I mean, our IT is outsourced. We have a fractional bookkeeper that's outsourced.
Yep.
Technically, he's a fractional CFO as
Half the time, small firms have PEOs that they're outsourcing their HR or they're hiring or otherwise do.
We might, I mean, if you are a growing firm and you need to get staff, it's so like, I'm like, look, it's October, right? I told you I've already hired 3 people this month. And is that even right? I don't even know. And we have a funnel, like we have a whole hiring funnel, but I've spent a lot of time.
You've had to build that out over years to get there.
And the funnel as presented to me, the original funnel, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm doing that. Because that's a crazy amount of work, right? Like, so the funnel as presented to me was like, you put like, you have to call this number. And they call the number and then there's a message telling them to send an email to, and it's like, so we have like, I call it like a light funnel, where, you have to send the email. You have to answer these 3 questions. I don't care what the questions are. It could literally be anything. It's just to weed out the junk. And then we have phone screens, and stuff like that. And they wanted us to be like, and then you got to Colby and print them right away. And I was like, man, that's a lot. And, get a Wonderlic in there. And I was like, oh man, I don't know about that.
We'll avoid the testing.
But if you can outsource, I mean, do you guys? So you'll handle the HR aspects too, and the hiring, and so. Is that you guys? I'm assuming y'all have a funnel that you also follow. That's proprietary.
We've got best practices. My co-founder worked. She was CFO at the last law firm. Before that she was CFO at a law firm called Stoll Reeves, which is a 400 attorney firm in the Pacific Northwest. She was director of finance at Perkins Coie, which is a 1,000+ attorney law firm. So we've all kind of been in the operations game inside of either small, mid-size, or large law firms for a bit. We have best practices up the what.
Right. I mean, and instincts and hunches are good, but if you're operating off of instincts and hunches, you got to be very quick to move. I mean, because
entirely. And it's going to take, and if you do that, that's great. It's going to take you longer and it's going to take more time and money than you think. You'll get to keep all of your name, shingle, bill rates, culture, people, right? That's all great. The other side of that coin is you go get snapped up by a much larger firm. That happens in PI. It happens in B2B. There's plenty of much larger firms that will snap up a 10, 15, 20 attorney law firm, no problem. Right? But there's no middle ground on that pendulum swing, right? Like the benefits of a merger without an actual merger, where the name, the shingle, and the culture, and the bill rates, and the people, and the hourly targets all stay. There hasn't been a middle ground. So we'll see. We're about 1.5 years in building it. We only really started selling it, call it January of this year. So we've only been selling it for about 10 months.
I think it's great. If you are, so what's your target? Where do you want to be?
Yeah. So we have 2 target markets. Existing firms, typically between about 5 to 75 in attorney headcount. Why? Because all of them have the same inflection points in cash flow cyclicality issues, small to mid-sized business problems. How do you hire a C-suite? When do you hire them? Do you need to switch from an on-prem to an in-cloud environment? How do you do that? Do I have anybody that's actually done that, right? And again, that's the pendulum problem, right? If you go get acquired, you can solve the administrivia, but all the reasons you started a firm in the first place are gone, right? Half your staff's duplicative, they're gone, name's gone, et cetera. So that's one target market. And the second target market is really groups of 5, 10, 15 plus attorneys starting their own firm, in which case we become that law firm in a box, turnkey. So that's actually my favorite target. And the reason that's my favorite target is the sales cycles are much shorter. The ROI is about double. Like if we're thinking about it from a business perspective, the time somebody starts that thinking, if they know that we exist, they can accelerate how to plan it, bring the cases, bring attorneys over, right? I'll take everything else. That sales cycle becomes the last firm we just signed and launched about 4 weeks ago. Sales cycle is 42 days. First call to sign contract was 42 days, and the launch was 60 days later. So if we imagine it, that's a 3.5 month window where we went from concept to a fully operational firm. In law firm context, that is insanely quick.
I mean, in 60 days, I went from a back office to a sublet, right? And that was that.
And these guys have an office on a prominent street in Manhattan, and they're running a $30 million top line shop.
Right. I mean, that's wild. So, and now what sort of infrastructure, you're providing the entire infrastructure, but what sort of infrastructure would that law firm want to have on site still?
So they happen to be a brick and mortar firm. I'm agnostic about whether somebody wants to be a brick and mortar firm or a totally virtual firm, right?
We're in a weird place with
right?
virtual firms. I've said a lot of derogatory things. I've called them fake firms.
I've run one that was a $100 million firm.
Right,
so they're good, bad, and otherwise. And I've seen the pros and cons on both sides. So they happen to be a brick and mortar firm. Can we do an office manager on site? Yeah. They happen to be our employee, but the office manager sits there. Can we do a receptionist on site? Absolutely.
So the office manager is really the employee for Federate.
Correct.
Oh. So they're not even having to deal with
so day to day, they're doing 99% of the work for that firm. I just have the management and the hiring. And if that employee doesn't work out, we replace that employee.
Replace them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So they showed up with, their base that they have onto their payroll, which we run, is all their attorneys, their couple paralegals, and their investigators. They did decide to have one or two of their own admin staff. I can easily just keep the admin staff on my side of the house, right? So it doesn't really matter. And then the infrastructure was all of their software. They have to pay for the brick and mortar. Because of the way we've built it, I've built the entire thing to be agnostic, which means it's all cloud-based. So no servers in a closet, it has to be cloud-based, right? So it works for both, but if you are a brick and mortar, if you can pay for your own office manager, or we can pay for it, because this isn't like I'm going to do this for 20 firms in a month, all of it's relatively bespoke to that one firm. It has to be, or it doesn't work.
Well, right. I mean, there's
some standardization there, and then there's a 20% bespokeness that comes to that firm that we have to meet with the firm where they are and how they want to operate, because every firm is going to be a bit unique in how they want to run things.
Fascinating. And so when is the pendulum swing between all being cloud-based and having it on the premises? So when do you make that switch?
I would say that if you have servers in a closet, you should have switched yesterday.
Yeah. So I've never had a server.
You'd be surprised at how many legacy firms still have servers full of closets that take an inordinate amount of time to fix, and the cost is astronomical. They should have switched yesterday.
Yeah, so I had two great lessons on this. One was in law school during Katrina. My father had a law firm, and they had servers, and the law firm was completely shut down.
Yeah.
They couldn't get in here. They didn't have access to their files. They didn't have access to the server.
Yep.
And I was calling him on like my flip phone in the pitch black, trying to use the phone as a flashlight before they had flashlights, being like, because they were like, can you get us our server? If you can get us our server, we can get back on operational. Oh, and by the way, any files you see, just pick them up, put them in a bin, put them in the car, bring them to us. I mean, they were literally
Katrina was wild. That was my senior year in college. That was a wild time for people.
I mean, it was, I was halfway through law school, and it was a really wild time. And I was like, man, I'm never going to do that. Then fast forward, I'm a lawyer for a large firm for New Orleans, a mid-sized firm in the region.
Yep.
And they had servers, and routinely, bless his heart, I love this guy, the IT guy, man, he just had the worst job ever. He's always getting yelled at, always getting things thrown at him.
Very thankless.
And the servers kept failing because they would shut the dedicated AC units off and they would overheat. And so I had the benefit of seeing that and just be genuinely like interested, like why did that happen? And he's like, it's because it got too hot, and it gets too hot, then they automatically fail safe. And he's like, I've been telling them like the server room is too hot and you need to have more AC, but then they shut the power down and I don't have any control. And I'm like, man, your job sucks. He's like, thank you, Justin. So when I started the firm, I was like, it was intentional. Yeah. Now I didn't have the money for servers. We could have done servers at any time.
Off the rack software.
It was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, because, Hurricane Ida hit, and just as I predicted, we were fully operational within 24 hours. Yep. I was in Florida. I had one guy MIA on the North Shore. But my staff, we were intake was starting. We didn't pause our campaigns, and we were ready to go. And that's how I always envisioned the firm would be. Yeah. I didn't know COVID totally changed all of this, right? But what's interesting, so I'll talk shit about virtual firms, but I really shouldn't, because the truth is, nobody comes down here. I haven't had a client come down here. I actually say that because we had someone this week. But I mean, we used to always, the rule was someone would call in. Yeah. You would set an appointment. The instruction was have them come for 10 o'clock. No matter, I don't care what was on how many people, 50 people want to meet me at 10 o'clock. Nothing would have made me happier to have a line out the door. Sure. I'll look popular.
Yeah, of course.
The reason they never would, right? They don't show up, and so you'll end up having one, or if it's a good day, you'll have two. And that's just how we did it. Then it became more and more of a challenge in the early days. You'd have to go meet clients at their house. Don't come to us, we'll come to you. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's not always what you want to do. Yep. Maybe it's not a great neighborhood. Yep. Maybe, and it's like, or maybe you've been doing it for long enough and you're like, man, I don't want to go.
Got a lot of time wasted in driving out there, particularly if there's a no-show or they're not there. Yeah. It's not the fit isn't there. Now you've got time driving back or driving to the next one.
You don't make the sale. I mean, I remember I signed up 2 in a day. One was in Helma. One, I don't even know where the other one was. It's some Starbucks and in the middle of nowhere. And so, and then COVID hit. And this, I was trying to use DocuSign. And my wife was the one, again, another great lesson from my wife, where she's like, I was like, they don't have emails. They can't use their emails. And she goes, Justin, you don't get it. Because she's like, I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up in a very sheltered sort of environment. She's like, if you didn't go to college or you don't have an office job, you might not have an email address. And if you have an email address, maybe it's something you signed up for so you could have a Facebook account, but it's not something that you use regularly. And it was just like one of those moments. I was like, well, then we're going to get software that lets us text our clients. We were already texting, but we weren't able to text contracts. And once we made that switch where we're texting them, and it's actually funny because it was a Fallvine product, but I didn't know it was a Fallvine product because it was before I'd ever heard of Fallvine. Yeah. It was just sort of an ancillary product that they sell. That changed the entire landscape of the firm. I haven't met with a potential new client in years. And that's not a dirty secret, because the truth is, if they wanted to, I'm here every single day. Yeah. Monday through Friday, week after week, year after year, decade. We just celebrate our 10th year anniversary this week. And thank you. Which technically it was September, but we just had a big party this week, Gary, I thought you were going to go to my party.
I was in Detroit shooting, filming.
Wow.
They sent me away. I was
understood. I had a whole Iberico ham bar for you. I was like, don't touch this. This is Gary's. Like One-Eyed Willie. I was like, that's One-Eyed Willie's. And so they don't want to come up here. No. They don't. Our clients care about their time every much as you do and I do. They don't want to, because I'm here, they're not. And so they controlled the market. Mm-hmm. All I had to do was really listen to them. And so the virtual firm thing, it's like, what are we talking about? Then if the client doesn't really want to come up here, I've had clients be like, can you just wire me the money? And I'm like, well, no, I can't, because I don't like that, because it makes me uncomfortable. But I even had a meeting the other day. I said, hey, we might be in the last year of this. Justin won't wire out of the trust account. I think this could be the last year of that.
Might be.
I was like, I know there are products out there. I'm super neurotic about the trust account. You can wire into it, but no ACHing. It's all blocked.
Okay.
To just make it safer because I'm protecting them. I'm a fiduciary, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know. So
we run trust accounting for every firm that we operate.
Yeah. And so, but I do think that we are officially getting to the point of where maybe people don't even care about that anymore, and so it's a wild place to be, know, and I often say COVID, like just all that technology was there. My first remote deposition I took in 2011, possibly 2010.
Yeah.
We were a very sophisticated firm.
Yep.
We had all the AV equipment. I was taking the deposition of some soybean farmers in Missouri because of the way that they packed their soybeans, because the soybean, it was such a stupid case.
Yeah.
And my partners were like, you're not flying out to Missouri to go
for this.
For this.
Yeah.
You can take there. It was like you can take it on this AV equipment. We just had it installed. You'll be like the first one. I mean, it's funny. I mean, we're 12, whatever. I don't know what the math is, right? It was 2000. I think it was 2010. So we're 10 years later exactly, and everyone's like, it's called Zoom. Very sophisticated, and I'm like,
sure, it was pixelated too at that point.
Right? But, it works the same. Actually, it was completely fine.
Yeah.
What it did was it forced us to use the technology that had been available for a very long time, and it allowed that use of that technology made it affordable for lots of businesses where otherwise no firm would have spent the money on that AV equipment.
Correct.
And honestly, that firm should not have spent the money on that AV equipment, because I bet I was probably the only deposition that got taken like that.
Yep.
And so, because lawyers were like we're like the trees in the Lord of the Rings. Like, it takes us a long time to say anything, right? We're very slow. Like,
I sell into attorneys all day long, and yes, I can verify that is true.
Especially on the defense, on the defense side. Like plaintiffs lawyers, like, we're scrappy.
You guys are at least more with it, and right? You've had to be, right?
We change our systems probably every month. I will do it to the point of where we call it like systems fatigue, where I'll be like, all right, we're gonna do a new thing, and you can just watch, just like everyone, just the emotion. They get so sad. So, well, look, I love this concept. I'm going to be selling your business to everybody I meet, because I think that is so cool. I do think that there's, especially in this market, we don't have maybe a lot of 100 lawyer firms in this market that are looking to switch, but we certainly have that 10 to 15.
And honestly, that's where that sweet spot is, because that's when you need to quote unquote grow up. Right?
Yeah.
That's when you have to figure it out.
That's when we grew up, right? So we had to grow up a little bit. Like, we had to come out with a dress code, right? I was like, no, you can't scream that word down the hallway. That's you're going to offend somebody. I'm confident someone here has to be offended by that. Right? I was like, I used to be like, I'm the cool boss. Like, it doesn't matter what time you show up. So worst, I don't know what the hell I was doing that day. I must have been like drunk. So now everyone's like in interviews.
We don't have policies. We've
I was
got
like,
nothing
what are your hours? So I was like, well, I can tell you we have hours for sure, because I'll never make that mistake again. I remember telling my paralegal was like, so 11 o'clock is like really the outer limits here. Like, what the fuck is going on? Where are you? So we don't do that anymore. You're right. So at 10 lawyers, you really do have to grow up. And
sometimes it's 5, it's 6, 7, sometimes it's 15. But like that's where that range is, where you have to actually reevaluate. Like, how do I mature my environment so that I can turn this into something?
I love the idea that your office manager is essentially outsourced staff, and you're saving all the money in taxes because they're your employee and the benefits. Man, and
I've all the software is going to be what you would need, but best in class. But because I procured it over here,
right? You can get another license, right? I mean,
right? Of course. No, we get another license all the time. But I now have economies of scale and purchasing power over here that doesn't exist for a 10 attorney firm, right?
Right. Yeah. So we always have that problem. So we're still in that area of where we don't have the economy of scale. And so when we talk, especially when we're talking like AI platforms, so that's the biggest one where we're just priced out. It's just like, we'll get there next year. And I've been very anti-AI, because for 2 years, I've been sold a hope and a dream, and they're like, this is going to be great. And I've always said, this is beta software, but with enterprise pricing. Yeah. I was like, if you want me to spend that kind of money on your startup, like, I should be getting some sort of like IPO.
You're using me as proof of concept.
Exactly. And so I was like, everyone's like, but we got to get in, we got to leverage it. I was like, stop saying leverage. 1, 2, no, we don't. No, we don't. What we need to do is to stay educated on it and wait for the moment. It's like going out and buying a flat screen TV.
So there's a curve there.
In like 96.
There's an absolute curve there. There's always going to be early adopters, but it's beta testers, as you're right. But you don't want to be so late on the late adoption that you're too late to the game. Yeah. And we've gone to enough technology conferences, legal operations conferences, et cetera. The turnover in sponsorships and in the booths of legal technology is pretty interesting because you go from one year to the next.
Right, there's like these guys are
half of them are correct. So that's a lot of where we come in because we're doing 3 demos a week. So we have gotten really good relationships with a lot of the vendors, not including the pricing, but we typically know what's out there.
Right.
And when that technology is mature enough to then have us recommend and put it into a firm. Right. Where we're not going to do that until it's mature enough where I know that it's not going to screw up.
Yeah, you're not gonna sell someone on a really crummy piece of software,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, like, so we demoed a few, and the way we'll do it is I'll say, all right, you give them a case and you give them a case. And like, let's see the product. And so we're sitting there on a Zoom call, and this guy is telling me, he's reading it out to me. This is going to be a demand gen, right? I was like, okay. And so I'm reading it, slip and fall at the Dunkin' Donuts. I was like, well, that sucks, man. I love Dunkin' Donuts. And so my lawyer Phil's on there. I was like, Phil, what do you think of all this? He's like, I think it's really cool. Slight problem. He's like, this is a trucking case. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, this is a trucking case. There's no Dunkin' Donuts? He goes, no, I don't know what that's about. I was like, okay, well, what are you demanding? Like, what's the demand? And the guy goes, what do you mean? I said, like, what's the demand? Like, what are you demanding for this demand letter?
Yeah.
And the guy's like looking at me like very puzzled. And I was like, well, see, that's what a demand letter is. It's a letter you send demanding someone to do something.
Literally in the title.
It's in the title. And in my line of work, it typically just means money. Like, I'm not usually sending a demand letter for the Chopin law firm to be like, I'm not asking for popsicles. Like, we want
I demand
money.
that you go to lunch with me next week. Like, no, absolutely not.
And the guy, like, literally, I was like, all right, well, look, I got a hard stop here. I know that's like a tech term. You guys all love that, right? Like, I got a hard stop. And I was like, walked away. And I was like, y'all can finish this call. I was like, I'm done. So there are, and this is like a major product and it was very expensive, and then you get to the next where it's like, okay, this is a great software. And now we've figured it out.
Yeah.
But but we're $300 per file. I was like, I got 1,000 files. And they're like, yeah, that's right.
Brutal.
And I was like, I'm not spending $300,000 for this. For $300,000, I'd do it myself. I was like, that's crazy. So I think we're a year out. We have another one. We're demoing another one right now. But I agree with it. Like, it's a huge time suck.
It is.
So I demo these. I usually don't have the lawyers demo them because I don't want their time occupied with a lot of
and then they see a flashy tool, but they don't
out.
know the right questions to ask or the inner workings of the operations and how it would function or integrate or otherwise. And so you end up going down rabbit holes where
like I've demoed so many things where I was like, well, how was it? I was like, don't even worry about it. We're not even going to talk about it. Like, you'll never use it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look. This is awesome. Federate Legal. I don't know why I struggle with that. It's a Federate.
You said it. It's fine.
Yeah,
it works either way.
Federate Legal. I think it's super cool, and I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
I appreciate
if you're
that.
listening, if I just happen to have a guest out there listening, and they're like, man, I want to start a law firm, you know, and this is the kind of product that I'm interested in. How would they find you?
So you either go to URL and submit a contact form. It's federatelegal.com. Or you email me. It's tj.henry@federatelegal.com. Either way, we'll get back to you pretty quickly.
Cool. I love it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Super
Thanks
cool.
a ton.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.